Hey, Warpugs. So, today we're going to be checking out something from PancreasNoWork. This was requested by Forgotten Honor in the Discord, and it is on the Lyran Commonwealth. Bigger is always better. Now, what do I know about the Lyran Commonwealth? Well, it's one of the great houses in Battletech. I am not well versed in Battletech, to say the absolute least. I know about the clan wars, I know about a little bit of stuff, I know about the telephone company that runs everything, but past that, you can't really get me into any kind of real specifics. I have learned a little bit. You guys have requested a good deal of stuff for Battletech, but at the same time, there are over 350 requests. I do what I can, guys. We're going to jump into this. We're going to learn about the Lyran Commonwealth. More than I know, I can promise you that. Let's get into it.
Robots? You like big robots that have people inside of them controlling them?
Yes.
The number of Warlord Titans GW is sold is higher than 0, so at least a few of you like big robots more than you like paying rent. And you know who else?
No kidding. Have you ever seen the price tag on a Warlord Titan?
Loves big robots? Battletech. It's a setting about warfare revolving around big robots. Naturally, they're gonna love them. No, I'm not gonna apologize about calling them robots instead of mechs. Suck a fat one. Even the smallest of scout mechs is still a mech, so if you tried to square up against one, you'd be an almost literal footnote in history. Yep. Battle mechs are titans of warfare, eliminating all in their path short of another, bigger battle mech. But one faction in this universe takes it to a whole new level. One faction looked at the battle mech and said, bigger. And when they were given bigger ones, they simply said, bigger, one more time. And then when they finally got the biggest battle mech they could reliably produce, they said more. Really, I could probably end the video right there, couldn't I? That's all you need to know about these guys.
Okay.
But that's no fun, and I don't get mid-roll ads if I do that. So sit down by your solid gold fireplace, laugh at the idea of people having less than 9 zeros in their bank account, and listen as I tell you about the Lyran Commonwealth, where subtlety goes to die. The Lyran Commonwealth came about in 2341, when 3 different mercantile alliances came together to form a really big one. So big, in fact, that the only other power that can rival them in sheer size is the Federated Suns, even to this day. A more professional channel might tell you a bit about these 3 different groups and how they came to merge. I won't be doing that because I don't care, and neither should you. Their governmental structure was similar to the ancient Athenians, with 9 rulers known as Archons running the place. Let me tell you, as someone who wrote an entire thesis about the subject to graduate college, ancient Athens sucked. Seriously, go read about their actual history beyond learning about how they created democracy, and then the teacher rapidly moves on with the lesson before anyone can ask what sort of things they did with the democracy. And sure enough, the system of 9 Archons also kinda sucked. So the leader of one of the 3 original states, one Robert Marsden, staged a coup and took control in 2375.
Nice.
Now he's in charge and there's only one Archon. Then in 2407, the Draconis Combine invaded for no doubt wonderfully valid reasons that don't revolve around honor and war crimes. His brother Alistair died, and then his wife Catherine Steiner took control. The Steiner dynasty had begun, and they would rule the Commonwealth for pretty much the rest of the setting.
Now, I did remember about the Steiner dynasty, but again, I only know it by association. Don't be looking for some grand commentary here, okay? I'm an idiot.
Things were a bit rough for the Lyrans for about 50 years, but then in 2443, the Lyrans pulled off the heist to end all heists. Despite
Really?
battle mechs being the mainstay of the setting, until now they weren't really a thing, and even then only for the power known as the Terran hegemony.
Oh.
The Lyrans took one look at the toy that the Terrans had and went, me want now. And sure enough, despite it being a rather turbulent affair to get a hold of him, House Steiner became the second house after House Cameron, and the first of the 5 still standing great houses to finally get their hands on a battle mech.
Nice.
Not long after, everyone else got their own, but the Lyrans were there first, and during the Age of War, this gave them a hell of a head start. Then the Star League happened, and the Lyrans joined in on that sort of prosperity humanity had at that point. Under the superpower of a united humanity, all was good-ish for a few hundred years, and then some asshole named Stefan Amaris decided things should no longer be good. One civil war and kick-ass last stand later, there was no more Star League or Terran hegemony.
Yay!
The Lyrans came out of it pretty well, given that they devoured a good portion of the Rimworld's Republic's planets, as well as a decent bit of the Terran hegemony's burnt-out husks of worlds. They even have the honor of initiating the first major strike of the First Secession War, and the slightly less honorable distinction of setting the precedent of everything being completely destroyed destroyed when the Lyran general in charge resorted to nukes. Even in the early days of the setting, bigger is always better was a common theme for these bastards. And if the first succession war was when people started dying en masse, the second succession war is when technology started doing the same. The Lyrans had actually managed to make some solid gains during the first war, granted at the cost of most of their warships and quite a few of their people. But during the second conflict, not many planets changed the color on their flag. What did happen was that the Lyrans, alongside everyone else, blasted their technological base back to the Industrial Revolution, which you might notice is a big problem for a spacefaring civilization.
It can create some issues, I think. Just a few small issues.
The Lyrans at this time were led by an Archon who was rather bloodthirsty, which in this case meant that he was focused on gladiatorial matches and murdering his political rivals rather than the war that was going on.
Yay.
This led to the Lyrans kind of getting the shit kicked out of them for a while, though as I'll explain later, this doesn't matter much to them. They got rid of him anyway, so he stopped being a problem sooner or later.
Well, there
I'm
you
jumping
go.
ahead about 20 years now to the Third Secession War, where things were a lot more small scale, but also the war was 200 years long, from 2866 to 3025, so it kind of balances out.
Okay.
I'm doing this because I'm realizing that I'm several pages of script into this video, and I haven't actually talked about what the Lyran Commonwealth or its House Steiner dynasty is like. So if you want to know what the Lyrans at large were up to for about 200 years, minor border disputes. That's the Third Secession War summarized, and that's pretty much all it was. Now, to sum up the Lyran Commonwealth, it is obscenely wealthy. If you recall from a couple of minutes ago, I mentioned that the Lyran Commonwealth came when 3 different mercantile alliances merged together. And even after 600-odd years, this spirit of mercantilism never went away. Making money is built.
So basically, Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, and Bezos get together and decide to pilot mechs. Nothing terrible can happen out of this scenario whatsoever.
Into the very heart and soul of the Lyran Commonwealth, which I'm going to return to, but it's something good to keep in mind going forward. Their head of state is, of course, the Archon, who is the current member of House Steiner, lucky enough to be the child or appointed heir of the last Archon. He or she has absolute power over the Lyran Commonwealth, except not really, but also yes, they very much do.
Okay.
If you piss them off, they're going to drown your planets in assault mechs until they decide you've had enough. They can grant noble titles just as easily as they can take them away. They're the head of the armed forces, so if the Archon says you're dying on a backwater planet, then you're dying on a backwater planet. And generally, you don't want to make them angry at you. Below them is the Commonwealth Council. They meet up every spring on the capital world of the Commonwealth, Tharkad, to discuss nobleman things and how to go forward in governing the Empire.
That is such an unfortunate name for her homeworld. Tharkad? Who did you owe money to put your homeworld as Tharkad?
The Lyrans have built for themselves. It's made up of 8 members, though later on the setting it was bumped up to 11, and only 1 member from any noble house can be on the council at any one moment, Steiner included. Of course, given that it's a safe assumption that a Steiner is always the Archon, you can probably guess which councilman is the most equal among them. Their power waxes and wanes with the years, but at least in theory, they're the second rung up from the top on the Lyran political ladder. They're an interesting mix of being a middleman and an advisory cabinet for the ruling Archon. The entity they're middlemaning for is the Estates General of the Commonwealth. Anything the Estates General passes has to go through the Council first before the Archon can approve it, but funnily enough for a setting whose main governments are feudal space empires, it is the Estates General who holds a large amount of the Lyran Commonwealth's power. More than the Archon? No. But they did once more or less veto the ruling Archon into resigning, showing that while they may have been formed as little more than yes-men, they've turned into an actual ruling body. In fact, they very much do have the power to depose the current Archon, though this can naturally raise all sorts of political hell. They also have to confirm the ruling Archon, so if nothing else, they can tell the current...
Wait. I saw something in that bottom corner there. Why is this here?
The ruling Archon, so if nothing else, they can tell the current Steiner trying to get in charge to piss off until a better one shows up. Not that they do very frequently because of the politics involved, but they can. No one with a higher title than Baron can join the Estates General, and each planet amongst the Lyrans elects a representative to be their guy on the inside for 6 years at a time. No term limits, so no doubt the same issues of old fucks who have been in power since before the television was invented plagues them, much like it does our current politics, but for a feudal empire modeled after the ancient Greeks, that's some good stuff. Their personal property is placed into a blind trust for the...
What is this thing? What is this thing with canopians? Canopians? Or whatever? I don't know.
Duration of...
Somebody explain this to me.
their term, and they even have their accommodations paid for by the Archon himself. True, the Archon could probably buy out a good chunk of the inner sphere if he really wanted to, but it's still a nice gesture and shows that the Commonwealth isn't just a one-man band. They're in charge of the boring shit that nonetheless gives the Lyran Commonwealth its immense power, like tax reforms and the budget, and by all accounts, at least on these matters, they're pretty good at their jobs.
Okay.
While the Archon can ultimately ignore anything they do if they so please, the Lyrans as merchants know the power of delegations and letting the businessmen do business unimpeded. And of course, wherever you are on the Lyran social ladder, money is the end-all be-all of things. Here's a nice quote from one Cyril Celio. One need to know very little to get by in the Lyran Commonwealth. Who to talk to, who not to talk to, and who to persuade with the appropriate number of sea bills. Now, granted, that man was serving 5 years in prison for bribery, but if anything, that just proves his point. You gotta bribe the right guy.
True.
And if you can do that, or just have enough money in general, you're the guy in charge. As a rule of thumb, the number of medals on an officer's chest is directly related to the number of digits in his bank account. If you have the money, you have an in amongst House Steiner and the Lyrans at large, which...
Okay, hold on a second. Virgin Sons Professional. Oh my god.
While yes, that is a general truth in both real life and the great houses, no one exemplifies it quite like the Lyrans. On the level of individual planets, they're largely left to do their own thing. However, the powers that be of any given planet decide they're going to run things is up to them. As long as you follow the general laws of the Lyran Commonwealth, at the end of the day, they won't bother you so long as the taxes are paid and all that good stuff.
Okay.
This, of course, leads to the occasional issue of some no-name noble deciding that if he's doing so well on his own, he may as well try to strike out on his own, but that's usually solved when the Lyrans descend upon him like a stampede of elephants until everyone remembers who's really in charge. Overall, it's created a very stable, somewhat democratic society where there's not really a major worry about the government coming to dictate exactly how many hours you work, what you're allowed to wear, or anything else like that.
Okay.
In fact, that's a common theme in the Commonwealth across the board. The people in charge are largely content to let those below them do their thing, so long as they retain power at the end of the day. While the Archon and the various nobles in charge can suddenly decide to impose martial law and force you into a labor camp, they never do. They don't create too many wacky laws, they don't have servitors like the Capellans, they're happy to let everyone do their thing while they reap the greatest of the benefits. This relaxed approach means that the population doesn't really feel like they're in a dictatorship, and because the economy founded by 3 nations of businessmen is left to do its thing, it has generated a lot of money for the powers that be.
Okay.
This has led the Lyrans to have the single greatest industry in the inner sphere, bar none. They can outproduce every single one of their enemies. While the Free Worlds League might in theory be the capitalist dreamland of your one friend who thinks opening a restaurant is a risk-free venture, it is the Lyrans who ultimately reign supreme in the economic sector. I can't emphasize enough how much money is at the very core of the Lyran Commonwealth. And unlike many other places, this has actually trickled down to the lower rungs of society. The poorest Lyran family could probably afford to own several Federated Sons families as housekeepers. The richest Lyrans are the sort of people to have their own personal garage of battle-ready battle mechs. And
Lovely.
yes, I did word that sentence specifically so I could say the phrase battle-ready battle mechs. The Lyrans may be one step above a dictatorship, but they keep people happy and, more importantly, wealthy enough to not want to change the status quo. Their economy is so goddamn pervasive that for all intents and purposes, they're playing a strategy game with infinite resources. And much like pretty much everyone does in strategy games when you toggle infinite resources on, the Lyran Commonwealth does little more than pump out the biggest, baddest mechs with next to zero regard for how viable they are in the situation they're in. Every war waged against the Lyrans is a war of attrition, and that is the exact kind of war you don't want to be on the opposite side of them in. A well-known joke both in-universe and out is that the Lyrans will create a scouting party out of assault mechs, the largest type you can possibly field. This is barely a joke. Any mech under 50 tons is despised by Lyran officers, and the throne room of the Archon has a pair of 2 fully functional Griffin mechs guarding it. Imagine for a moment, if you will, if the president in the Oval Office had 2 Abrams tanks guarding him. They're not unmanned, there's people in those things, they're ready to fight at a moment's notice. Another joke you might have heard, and one that I've certainly made, is that some people in trigger-happy factions like to replace the atmosphere they're in with bullets. You know, like the orcs over in 40k.
True.
The Lyrans do a similar thing, only instead of doing it with bullets, they replace the atmosphere with Atlas mechs. Because to the Lyrans, whose generals are operating on what is essentially a post-scarcity economy, it doesn't matter how many assault mechs they lose. There's always more of the things waiting to be pumped to the front lines.
And this single thing right here, this single statement, is so unbelievably relatable. it is so ridiculous how just play any game. Play any game you want. What's better to have? The strongest economy, the strongest military, the strongest science. It's almost always the strongest economy. Because it doesn't matter. Like, if your economy is 100% better than the guy with the strongest military, you're going to be able to replace the losses that you take far faster than him. It is... Let's go.
Wars against the Lyran Commonwealth end with two outcomes. The enemy is either a red stain on the ground, or the guy in charge of operations on the Lyran end of things decides he's had enough of this nonsense and goes to bother somebody else. Or when he decides he needs more Canopian cat girls for his harem. I'm only joking, of course. I couldn't find anything about Steiner generals having cat girl harems. The cat girls are all partaking in blood sports on Solaris. The average Steiner campaign is just choking the enemy to death on heavy mechs. You can't outproduce them, you can't match their heavy hitters with your own. The best you can hope to do is outmaneuver them until someone important decides that Commonwealth forces are best spent elsewhere. A Lyran army is an army of walking fortresses, and while this limits their tactical flexibility to the extreme, it also means that once they finally move into range, you can kiss your ass goodbye. It also means that the Lyran's home turf advantage is even greater than that of other factions. When they go on the attack, you can at least get yourself a couple of weeks worth of a breather if you manage to destroy the first 30 Lyran assault mechs before the next wave comes in. When you invade them, they can just walk straight out of their factories onto the battlefield. Sure, you can frequently find tales of Lyran forces being destroyed because the enemy used the agility of smaller mechs to run circles around them, but what the victor of these conflicts usually leaves out of the propaganda is that they only won because House Steiner shrugged its shoulders and went to do something else.
That's the one thing in any defensive situation. In an offensive situation, you can plan around what they're going to bring. You can plan around it, but for defensive, I mean, you're going to have to attack a walking fortress, and that's never a good idea. That is always horrific. You can plan 3 days from Sunday if you know what's coming and you know the terrain. But if you're having to assault the facility, oh my god, you're going to take losses that are extreme. The easiest example is how one Titan Legion held off a massive force of orcs that were assaulting an Imperial city, and did so for a very long time before being overran. And the death toll basically it was a genocide. But orcs don't really care about genocides, even when it doesn't matter to an orc if they're the ones being genocided or they're the ones committing genocide, as long as they're having fun doing it.
It doesn't matter that the Lyrans only have one trick up their sleeves, and that trick is just the word economy printed in bold Comic Sans font. It doesn't matter that Lyran generals are almost always outstandingly incompetent because they got to their positions through bribery and nepotism. Right. They don't need to be competent. The average Steiner general has the same budget as God when planning his or her military campaign. In fact, though I'm unsure if this has ever been said officially, I fully believe that the reason Steiner generals have such issues with incompetence is that they have no reason to be competent. I think it's a symptom of the fact that the economy has always been so good in the lands of House Steiner that some idiot being bad at war doesn't matter to them. The people are fed and kept reasonably happy, so who cares that the guy in charge got a few dozen thousand people killed and wasted 30 atlases? 50 more just rolled off the production line, and the Archon promised the next batch of recruits that if they do really well, they might become the next generation of nobles. To wrap up what the Lyrans are like, you should know that they're very, very German. Their army's ranks are all based on that of the old German military, as is their nobility based on German nobility from when Terra was called Earth. And they just love German culture. Boy, do they love it. Actually, hang on a minute. They're militaristic, as all Battletech factions are. Okay. They're known for deploying big, massive vehicles of war, whether or not it's worthwhile to do so. They seem to bounce back alarmingly quickly from massive conflicts. They're German. Uh-oh. I kid. The Lyrans aren't the worst people ever. They're just...
Wait, hold on.
Conflicts. They're German. Uh-oh. I kid.
This joke brought to you by that guy in the comments of my Tamriel Great War video who implied I was a supporter of the Third Reich because I said you should kill elves. If you thought that was bad, you aren't going to like what I have to say about the cat balance.
Hey kid, the Lyrans aren't the worst people ever. They're just really into German culture.
And seriously, guys, you have got to be shitting me with some of the people that throw around things like this over games and theory. It is some of the most ridiculous stuff I've ever seen. The funniest thing I've ever seen was people that say that 40K endorses fascism. When I first heard that, I was like, are we talking about the same game right now? Are we actually talking about the same game right now? Because I don't know if you've noticed, but even if you consider the Imperium that kind of empire, it's a damned hellhole and you don't want to live there. And I'm not quite sure why people sit there and think that the Imperium's a good thing. It's a bad thing! When your fandom doesn't want to live in the universe that the fandom is based off of, in any way, shape, or form, that's a bad thing.
The way they see it, it was Germany and their descendants who got everyone out of the post-Star League funk, so they have it as their official language of trade, governance, and all that jazz.
All right.
You might think this would lead to absolutely massive issues with race relations and whatnot, but it actually doesn't. The whole thing about them saying Germans raise everyone out of hell is a very subtle thing that they push, and even beyond that, they care about it culturally rather than racially. You can be of any ethnicity humanity has to offer. Come and have some beer and pretzels, fellow Germans. The Lyrans are happy to have you under their iron fist.
Yeah.
I would kill to go to a Lyran Oktoberfest. The beer would flow like a river. I'm sure this also means that some Steiners are into some really weird porn, but let's not dwell on such topics, yeah? Chaos cults don't exist in this universe anyways, so it would just be some freaky hobby of theirs and not demon summoning garbage.
Okay.
Anyways, time to get back to history, because after the Third Secession War was when Battletech starts getting a bit wacky. Wacky in the sense of the space feudalism gives way to some space eugenicists trying to kill everyone because their great-grandpa had some wacky ideas on how to get everyone to behave. In 2976, one Katrina Steiner was born. She was a sickly child, which made it all the more surprising when at the age of 12 she decided she was going to pilot battle mechs.
Lovely.
She was positioned in a number of odd jobs throughout the Lyran military before coming to command the 10th Lyran Guard, a position which traditionally belonged to the heir of the current Archon. Not really sure why they aren't in charge of the 1st Lyran Guard, since you'd think that'd be more prestigious, but I guess it's because 10 is a bigger number, and in the Lyran Commonwealth, bigger is better. After accidentally being the target of an assassination attempt by the current Archon and fleeing to the periphery to LARP for a bit, she staged a coup and became the Archon. And I mean, just look at her. This is the face of someone who takes no shit from anyone. Towards the end of the Third Secession War, she proposed something never before seen, a true peaceful end to everything. Naturally, everyone told her to fuck off with those stupid ideas, but Prince Hans Davion of the Federated Sons thought it was something worth considering. Relations between the two biggest great houses began to warm, and in 3022 they signed a deal to get some cooperation between the states in matters of science, economy, and general military matters.
Yay!
It also had a secret provision few knew about, which will come into play soon. And then the year 3028 comes along, and two very important things happen.
Okay.
One, the Fourth Secession War breaks out, and though it only lasts 2 years instead of 200, it's the largest conflict in terms of scale since the second one. 2, House Steiner and House Davion married that Hans fellow to Katrina's daughter, Melissa Steiner. And with that, the two largest powers in the Inner Sphere merged to become the Federated Commonwealth.
Ooh.
And while the Fourth Secession War had very little in terms of territorial losses or gains, in fact, if Sarn is to be believed, it had zero of either, the Lyrans now enjoyed a position of unmatched power, even if they had to share it. Katrina's workings towards peace got her noble house and empire one hell of a reward. True, this era didn't go completely in favor of the Lyrans. If you ever played MechWarrior 5 and wondered why the hell there was a whole entire new country in between the Lyrans and the Caridans, it's because the Lyrans were forced to let an entire section of their border become independent. But all in all, things were looking good for the Lyran Commonwealth. A new title, Archon Prince, was created to be the ruler of the complete combined empire.
Nice!
And things were good. Although in saying that there were no territorial exchanges, Sarna also says that the Lyrans took 53 planets from the Draconis Combine and the Capellans lost a third of their entire holdings to the Federated Sons. So I guess believe in whatever scenario you want to believe in, based on whether or not you like House Carita. I'd say whether or not you like the Capellans, but come on. Nobody likes the Capellans. Capellans don't like Capellans. And then, year 30...
Wait. Oh, you guys taught me something, so I'm trying to remember it. Hold on. Oh my god. Hold on. I gotta get back here.
Don't like Capellans.
Damn it. Hold on. There we go. kill Capellans, kick Capellans, punch Capellans in the face, kick Capellan babies, put Capellans in a blender and make Capellan smoothies, throw Capellans into space, shoot Capellans into the sun, curb stomp your Capellan neighbors, blow up Capellan orphanages. I got a feeling he has a problem with them.
And then, year 3050, clans.
Yay.
From the galactic north of the Inner Sphere came hordes of smelly, unwashed barbarians who were unfortunately very good at battle. Not war, pointedly, but battle. And much like everyone else who was unlucky enough to be caught in between the clans and Terra, the Lyran suffered pretty hefty losses against them. For the first time, it seemed like Lyran industry wouldn't be enough to hold off the invaders, and the Inner Sphere was gripped by fear as the clanners' relentless assault drove ever closer to Terra. Then the phone company handed them their asses and everyone got a pause to breathe for a bit. And out of all people to do it, a competent Steiner general is the one who was in charge. Anastasius Vogt, also known as Frederick Steiner. Look at this man. This is the face of a man who looked the most battle-hardened, bloodthirsty warriors in the galaxy in the eyes and told them where they could shove their honor duels. As it turns out, when House Steiner and the Lyran Commonwealth somehow managed to produce a general who knows actual tactics, there's not a force in existence that can bring them down. Except Clan Wolf, I guess, but 6 out of 7 victories ain't bad. Nah. And yes, in a defensive war, a draw is a victory. So 6 out of 10, you pedantic motherfuckers that are about to tell me about the draws the Falcons and the Bears got. A second Star League was formed by the Great Houses to deal with the clanner threat, and naturally, the Federated Commonwealth had quite a bit of power within it.
Yay.
Now, I'm going to be honest with you, viewer. From everything I've heard most people say about it, once you get past this era of Battletech, things get a lot less fun and a lot more stupid. And not fun medieval houses in space stupid. More so, this is awful writing and you killed half the factions we liked stupid. At least from how I understand it right now, it's like the end times but not quite as shit. And from what I've read of that part of the setting, I tend to agree. Rest in peace, Comstar, speaking of. May you wiretap people for the rest of time in the great corporate dystopia in the sky. As funny as the
What happened to Comstar?
Blackest Jihad is in a dark way, I don't care to cover much of it. So I'm gonna speedrun the rest of Lyran history right now.
Go for it.
Sound good? If you really want to look into it, feel free, but take my word for it that sometimes the majority is right and something really does just kinda suck. A woman named Catherine Steiner Davian decided she would quite like to be in charge, so she removed the entire Lyran half of things from the Federated Commonwealth and renamed it the Lyran Alliance. Bitch. She tried to become the First Lord of the Second Star League, did not succeed. The FedCom civil war between the two halves of the Federated Commonwealth happens, and it ends with them going back to being their own thing again.
Okay.
Then the Second Star League is dissolved because no one cares to have it around anymore. A certain part of Comstar decides this is total bullshit, and the Blackest Jihad resets the technological level of Battletech back to the pseudo-Middle Ages after it had been actually recovering soundly for some time. Double bitch. The Lyran Alliance eventually renamed itself to being the Commonwealth again, tries to invade the planets they gave up as a border stake to Razelhag, and it resoundingly backfires. The Archon is killed before some clanner scum bigwig reveals he's actually the son of that asshole Catherine and plans on becoming the next Archon.
Okay.
The father of this person, very importantly and very grossly, being her brother Victor. I'm tentatively sure it was done with some genetic fuckery rather than regular brother-sister fuckery, but it's still gross. I don't care it also lines up with clanner eugenics and all that stuff about bloodlines being strong. That's nasty. Stop it. But anyways, I'm done with the Lyran history now. I'll end with some tabletop stuff. Since Battletech doesn't have any factions in the way other war games do, if you want to play the Lyrans, you just need to remember that bigger is always better. Always take assault mechs, and when you can't take any more of those, take heavy mechs. Only take a medium mech if you cannot take anything heavier, and if you try to take a light mech, then please see yourself over to the Capellans, you goddamn peasant. The colors of House Steiner are blue and white, with some yellow thrown in every now and then to make it pop. If the returns from the Google image search I used were correct, the color should be done with the blue being the predominant one, with them taking about 60 to 70% of the model starting on the left side, with the white taking up the remaining parts on the right. Of course, it goes without saying that this obviously isn't a necessity, you goof, and there's a few paint schemes where it's just
Look at the codpiece. It says Scout on it.
Blue and yellow. I like those ones, in no small part because it's the same scheme I use for my Eldar, and I like when two of my favorite factions have something like that in common. But however you choose to paint them, this has been my rather abridged history of the Lyran Commonwealth, wielder of the biggest guns in the Inner Sphere. It's a shame they aren't Comstar, but they're still my second favorite faction. Thank you to my wonderful channel members. You are the factory to my house Steiner, letting me pump out wave after wave of videos with absolutely zero regard as to whether or not you want them. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or become a member. Either way, thank you for watching and take care out there.
Alright.
Alright, let me set things straight. You see the Atlas? This thing is the best mech. You might say, well, it's big and ugly and a massive fire magnet. Okay. And? That's the entire fucking point of the thing. Kerensky himself said to make it as big and ugly as they could possibly make it. This thing is designed with the intention of making you shit your pants as much as it was with the intention of being a viable weapons platform. It has an AC-20 lodged into its goddamn chest. You can rip the arms and legs off this thing so it's sitting there like the Black Knight from Monty Python, and it's still a threat. And if there's one thing I hope you take away from this video, it's that the Lyrans have these things in fucking spades. Comstar probably does too, since although they have far better tactics and an actual understanding of utilizing lighter forces, they also control pretty much the entire galactic market, so they can afford it. That's what happens when your version of V-Bucks are the standard everyone else's money is compared to. So yeah, the Atlas is the king of the mechs. The Mackie may be the original, the Highlander may have the Legend of the Blackwatch behind it, and Little Irby may be the underdog to end all underdogs, but nothing has the same awe-inspiring presence as the Atlas. This thing will scout you directly to hell. You like...
Okay, so... the last few times I've taken this headset off is blasted my eyeballs off. There we go. There we go. So, I would like to see more about the great houses. Now, I knew about House Steiner. I knew a little bit about how they operated. I did not know their predilection for assault mechs. I just didn't know that at all. So, when it boils down to it, I learned a lot. I learned a good deal. And I'm happy to have learned a good deal. Anytime that you have a ridiculous economy where you can just pump out the most powerful thing flat out to exist in your area, and you can pump it out like it's candy, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. I'm sorry. I don't care how good you are. For every Atlas you kill, I'm bringing another 4. That's the definition of stupid powerful. What else is there to say but that? That is utterly frightening when you consider the sheer amount of power an assault mech can bring into a firefight, and that they're just sitting there bringing them as less of a statement and more of a we're here kind of deal, which is a statement all unto itself. I'd like to learn about the other great houses the same way that this was presented. So I'm hoping he's done some other stuff. I'm sure you guys will find it if he has, and I'm sure I'll find it in the Request for Reacts channel. So guys, go check out PancreasNoWorks. All of his links come in the description down below right next to my own. Be sure to check them out. Subscribe if you haven't already, because I saw how many of you are unsubscribed and it's hurting my heart. It's hurting my heart. I'll catch you guys next time. Just pain. I need an Atlas.